presentation. It reminds me of one of Richard Dawkins' programs when he didn't really want to discuss with adults or with people or philosophers. He picked on 12-year-old girls and said, "Why don't you believe in evolution? You're so dumb. Believe in me." That was the kind of like the display of some forms of atheist arrogance, in my opinion. And the reason I'm saying this is because there's a big issue here. And the issue is, if we even were to take the atheist narrative on the world, and he was very moved by lizards tearing their fleshes apart. He was almost about to cry, which means he has humanistic tendencies, yeah? And if there were animals, therefore he might have animalistic tendencies too. So the point I'm trying to say is, that's good, but the point is, I have a very dark view in the world. It's no wonder the atheist moral philosophers, they wrote essays on suicide. They said the greatest question is, shall we suicide? Bertrand Russell, the famous atheist, would say, if you want to get along in life, you have to get over the fact that we're just a cosmic orphan. That's the reality, people. But I think that's very sad. And take motherhood as an example. My wife, she went through 42 hours of labor. 3-minute contractions from the beginning. 42 hours of labor. Towards the end, her mother had to get out of the room because her mother was a very strong woman. She's gone through the death of her husband, she's gone through lots of issues. And she had to leave. I was there on my own in the last 12 hours. And I see my son's heartbeat go. I see my wife, she's about to die. Emergency people come in to try and fix the problem. I'm saying, I'm ready for funerals. Once my son was born, what did my wife say? She said she'd do it again 100 times. This is the reality of the theist. This is the reality of the atheist. You have a bleak world, you have no power. You can't empower yourself. Because we have conceptual tools that come from revelation to teach us that there are wisdom behind these things. Because what Stephen Law has done is a straw man, logical fallacy. He committed a person like myself to a particular view, and I don't hold these views. I don't only believe that God is good. I don't only believe He's all-powerful. In Islam, this is why I mentioned revelation, because it undercuts his argument. Because we don't say we know God from nature. The only thing we can know about a cause for the universe is that He's one, eternal, unique, immaterial, transcendent, which is based upon conceptual analysis. Anything else we raise our hands with, we can't claim anything. It's like a knocking on the door. We don't know who's behind the door. There's something behind the door. It transcends the room. It's outside of the room, etc., etc. We can't attribute goodness or evil to this being. It tells us. And we know that from revelation. And this is why I gave a good response or good reasons to believe in the Quran, which is the book of the Muslims. Scientific, numerical, historical reasons to show that you can't find naturalistic explanations. So we know who God is, not just by looking at the world, because when you look at the world, what do you have? You have particular glasses. If you're a pessimist, the world's going to be bad. Okay, it's going to be a Stephen Law type of world, right? If you're an optimist, you know, like me, my dad's Greek, he's a bit crazy, yeah? You're like, everything's great, pain, yeah, let's have more pain, yeah? But do you see the reality? You bring some concepts or some intellectual and historical baggage to your experience. So it's like subjective. But I think the best way to undermine the whole argument is in the following way. See, the problem of evil assumes there's moral properties. They assume that there are such things as good and evil. And for an atheist to make that would be inaccurate. Because to claim that things are objectively evil, they're really evil, look, they're killing each other, yeah? Look, there's earthquakes, babies are dying. If these are really objective in nature, it necessitates God's existence. If we study moral ontology, we need an ontological foundation for objective morals. Atheism doesn't do that. So what he's done, his own question requires the existence of God. Do you see? You don't have to explain why this happens. This is a question we'll have all the time, but it doesn't negate God's existence, do you see? Because in atheism, you just have two moral ontological foundations: social pressure or evolution. If there's more, we could discuss it. Social pressure, well, we know the problems. Nazi Germany, that means that must be a good thing then, right? Because it's social pressure. Or God knows what's going to happen in 20 years' time. There's an organization called NAMBLA, the North American Men Lover Boys Association. They're using UN human rights legislation to essentially allow older men to sleep with 4-year-old boys. They're using it. That might happen in the future because it's based on social pressure. That's the reality. So the thing is, if it's based on social pressure, objective mind doesn't mean anything because it changes. Anyone studying social theory or social constructionism will see society moves along. Also, what about evolution as an ontological foundation for objective morality? Well, that can't be the case because we're just byproducts of a lengthy biological process. Our morals have evolved like our ears or teeth or your unwanted hair. They don't have any true meaning. This is why philosophers of science, and he was an atheist by the way, Michael Rules, he says when you say love thy neighbor as thyself, you think you're referring above and beyond yourself, but it has no true meaning. It has no true meaning. It's just pegged on biology. That's going to change. Your morals are going to change. No wonder Darwin said, if we were to evolve like the sharks, then it would be morally okay to rape women. Because that's how they evolved. They forced themselves on their mates. So the way to really undermine the whole argument is saying you've assumed moral properties, and in doing that, if you're assuming the objective, then you can't do that because that requires God's existence in the first place. And if you say no, they're not objective, then it's a subjective argument. It's just probabilistic, which doesn't really give any good grounding as an argument itself, because then I could say, well, I could still perceive rationally in any scenario that good's always going to prevail. And it depends on what kind of approach you have. What kind of glasses do you have to view the world? What concepts, what innate concepts do you bring to experience? So I think the way to deal with it, I want to discuss in the Q&A more because I have many more answers, but the way to deal with it fundamentally is by saying you've assumed moral properties, you've assumed the real and objective, the outside of human subjectivity. If that is the case, you've necessitated God's existence because God is the only conceptual anchor that transcends human subjectivity. Also, you did another argument which is called God of the gaps. Oh, we can't find any answers, explanations, so we just squeeze God in there. That's an outdated atheist cliche because I didn't start with a question and say we can't find an answer, therefore it's God. We didn't do that. What we did, we probed the universe, used logic, reason, scientific naturalism, conceptual analysis, and moved together to a conclusion that there must be a cause to the universe because, look, if you study logic, you see it's a sound and valid argument. 1, whatever begins to exist is a cause. 2, the universe began to exist. 3, therefore the universe is a cause. And upon conceptual analysis, we come to the understanding that this cause must be one, eternal, unique, immaterial, and it has a will. That's a sound argument. That's a valid argument. It's based on reasoning. It's not God of the gaps. It wasn't a question. I started with a question and said, therefore it must be God. We moved together. And once we concluded there's a cause with these attributes, then we said, oh my God, they're so in line with the Quranic view of God. And I gave you the essential chapter that describes God's existence and his oneness, etc.